When a wolf stops fighting, it continues to mark a territory it no longer defends with conviction. The scent glands still function. The ritualized movement persists. But somewhere between the movement and the purpose, a serious gap has formed. Silent, unacknowledged, and vast. Welcome to my channel. I'm James. The first series of my channel focused on control. This second series focuses on the states in which fighting has ceased. Enjoy watching. The wolf rises again at the same hour it has risen for years. There is no decision in this. The body initiates the routine before consciousness fully returns. Muscles begin to contract in an established sequence. Weight shifts forward, eyes open not to see, but to prove that seeing is still necessary. The den entrance is 3 meters ahead. It has always been 3 meters. The distance has not changed, but the act of exiting from there has accumulated a weight that cannot be measured in physical terms. Outside, the territory continues to stretch in every direction with the same boundaries left over from yesterday, from the previous season. Movement answers no questions. Movement merely continues. A conversation that began a long time ago and whose original subject has been forgotten. Scent markings are renewed at intervals determined more by internal rhythm than by external necessity. Every tree, every rock formation, every small rise in the terrain functions as a node in a network the wolf maintains with mechanical precision. Urine is deposited. The soil is scraped backward. Gestures complete themselves. An observer might interpret this as a territorial claim, the behavior of an animal secure in its domain. Yet security and habit, while arising from entirely different internal states, can produce identical external expressions. That is, while the inside may be very different, everything can look the same on the outside. In the middle of the patrol, the wolf stops beside a fallen log where it has paused for 7 winters. The pause is so brief it barely counts as a break in movement. Perhaps 3 seconds, perhaps 4. In these seconds, nothing happens. No decision is made. No thought turns into a logical conclusion. And yet something accumulates in this pause. Something resembling waiting without expectation, without even a shape for what is being waited for. Then the patrol continues. What the brain has stopped carrying, the legs carry. This is not called tragedy, because the wolf has no perspective from which to recognize it as such. It is defined only as continuation. Ordinary continuation, the morning hunt follows the established pattern. Tracks are identified, assessed, and followed to the point that usually ends in retreat or abandonment. Today, like yesterday, like the day before, the tracks reach a conclusion that meets minimum requirements. The prey is neither large nor particularly nourishing, but it crosses the threshold between insufficient and sufficient, and that threshold is all that is required for the day to be classified as functional. The meat is eaten in an ordinary way. Hunger decreases. The action is completed. What remains is not satisfaction, only the absence of a specific discomfort. An absence the wolf's cognitive apparatus does not distinguish from fulfillment. On the eastern border there is an enemy. This enemy has existed for 2 years. Their encounters have followed a scenario both animals know with absolute certainty: approach, display, vocalization, withdrawal. Neither animal has been injured in these encounters. Neither has gained ground, because they have not fought. The boundary line oscillates within perhaps a 50-meter range, responding to changes too small to be named yet influential enough to affect confidence without rising to conscious motivation. Things like weather, recent hunting success, the presence or absence of temporary factors. The wolf approaches the border at a time determined not by external clarity, but by an internal setting that has become indistinguishable from necessity. The rival arrives on time as well. The display begins. Each animal performs its role with the fluency of actors playing a scene rehearsed beyond the need for thought. Hackles rise. Bodies angle outward. Sounds are used at calculated intensities, not to intimidate, but to preserve the established balance. This cannot be called a fight, because nothing either animal truly values is at risk. The territory is held not because it contains resources worth defending, but because relinquishing it would constitute a change, and change would require an expenditure of psychological energy that neither animal nor its rival possesses in surplus. When the display ends, both animals return to their own territories. The wolf does not consider this a victory. The rival does not perceive it as a defeat. What both experiences, even the right term is, the fulfillment of a duty whose origin has lost its importance. The event has been absorbed into routine through repetition. The question of whether the action serves a purpose has been buried under the accumulated weight of the action's history. The wolf returns to the center of the territory, positioned toward the direction from which threats historically emerged, and begins to rest. There is no threat. The eyes remain open, scanning the environment with systematic regularity. Yet what is being scanned has begun to grow increasingly abstract. Threat has shifted from a specific danger to be detected into a general condition to be monitored. Monitoring, in turn, has shifted from vigilance into the body checking boxes on a list the mind no longer consults. The task is the same, but the purpose is gone. When purpose disappears, the logic of the work disappears with it. This rest continues until the change in light, marking the afternoon. The wolf's breathing is controlled. Muscle tension is distributed in patterns that imply readiness without evoking expectation. To an observer equipped with instruments, the wolf would be recorded as an organism in a state of alert relaxation. The pack the wolf once led no longer exists in its former state. The dispersal did not occur through a single bad event, but gradually through the quiet realities of survival. But it is still very sad. Some members moved to regions offering better conditions. Others were defeated by events beyond the wolf's control. What remains is not loneliness, because loneliness requires a comparative frame. Alternative states held alongside present reality. What remains is simply a reduced unit. The wolf, the territory, the routine. When the patrol route passes through places where the pack once gathered, the wolf does not stop, but its speed decreases at the moment it briefly recalls the past. In these altered speed moments, something stirs at the edge of the wolf's awareness that never fully achieves the status of thought, but roughens the smooth surface of mechanical continuation. Then the speed returns to normal. The route continues. The disturbance blends back into the fundamental hum of maintenance. Communication has been reduced to its most minimal form. The wolf still howls, but the howls have lost their complexity. They no longer carry detailed information that coordinates group movement, signals opportunity or danger, or marks resources worth mobilizing for. They now primarily serve to announce existence as sound that confirms the wolf can still produce. Sound that the act of announcement occurs even if there is no one left to receive it as intended. Sometimes distant howls answer. The wolf's system records these responses, classifies them as non-threatening, and stores them in memory under labels that generate no action. The social network that once required constant maintenance has withered. into a background condition that demands no attention beyond basic acceptance. The wolf is, in fact, finished, and continues even knowing that it is finished. The din requires maintenance. This maintenance is performed on time. Debris is cleared. Structural integrity is assessed through methods the wolf cannot articulate but executes with certainty. The work is neither extensive nor particularly demanding, but in a period when time has become increasingly difficult to fill, it consumes time. The hours between dawn and dusk are long. Activity expands, not because it is needed, but because unfilled space presents a problem for which the wolf has no tools to address. Rest becomes difficult not due to physical exhaustion, but the reverse because energy circulates within the system without finding purpose or exit. Perhaps the sentences feel a bit tangled, but I am sure you understand what the wolf feels. Winter approaches, as it always has, falling temperatures, shifts in prey migration patterns, shorter days. The wolf's body responds to these signals with preparations encoded into its physiology. Fur thickens. Fat reserves are evaluated and found marginally sufficient. Metabolism adapts to the expected scarcity. These preparations occur automatically. They require no decision, no conscious participation. The wolf prepares for winter as it has always prepared. That is, it meets the minimum conditions for survival without approaching the boundaries that might be called growth. Is this a routine documentary of a wolf progressing under minimum conditions? Perhaps some might say so. But the truth is, this is the routine of a wolf that has stopped fighting and continues to live unwillingly. Unfortunately, at the southern edge of the territory there is a young male wolf. This male has been testing the boundaries for 3 weeks. His approach differs from the established rival on the eastern border, less ritualized, more probing. It carries the uncertainty of inexperience and, at the same time, the pressure of necessity. The young male wants the territory. The wolf has the territory. The math is simple. What complicates the math is that defending territory requires more than physical capacity. It requires a willingness to escalate born not of strength, but of attachment to what is being defended. The wolf still possesses physical capacity in abundance. What it lacks, in precise measure, is the attachment that would convincingly fuel escalation. Power exists, but the system does not. If you have a Ferrari but the engine or the brain of the car is not installed. This is exactly like that. When the encounter begins, it does not look dramatic. The young male approaches. The wolf responds with a display that worked in the past. But something in the display has weakened not in volume, not in physical presentation, but in a quality animals perceive without naming, a frequency that conveys decisiveness or its absence. The young male does not retreat like previous challengers. He stops closer than where the others stopped. The wolf does not escalate. The gap between them remains fixed, but this fixity is different from before. It resembles postponement more than balance. After the encounter, the wolf returns to its patrol. The route does not change. Movements retain their efficiency. The territory is still territory, but the encounter has introduced a variable that cannot be immediately processed and ought. Doubt, not fear, but a kind of question that exists beneath language, even beneath the primitive concepts that precede language. The question does not ask whether the wolf will continue. Continuation is not in question. The wolf will rise at the same hour tomorrow, patrol the same boundaries, maintain the same den. The question, if it asks anything, asks what happens at the point where continuation becomes indistinguishable from outcome, where the difference between still fighting and having stopped becomes so narrow that even the organism drawing the distinction cannot find the line. A critical situation requires a critical decision. If we return to the beginning, how did the wolf fall into this state? Would it ever have occurred to the wolf that it would end up like this? As the light fades, the wolf has already reached the western boundary. The scent mark is renewed. The soil is thrown backward. The ritual is completed. Beyond the boundary, the landscape stretches into a darkness that is not particularly threatening, but also not particularly anything. The wolf heads toward the den. The route is known. The arrival is known. The reaching is known. Everything that will happen in the coming hours, the next day, the next season, is known with the certainty of having crossed the threshold, where repetition produces neither comfort nor discomfort. It simply is. The wolf continues. The wolf just continues, as if nothing has happened, as if everything is the same, and the wolf continues to live as if it were dead.